The Darlington Raceway is interwoven into stock car racing's history and has been for more than 70 years. Returning to South Carolina, as we did last year, the NASCAR Night Series has seen nothing short of fantastic racing from this mile and a third circuit. The home of the Southern 500 and home of NASCAR Cup Series racing since the 1950s, it's only fitting now that to begin our next level race for the championship, it is the virtual Lady in Black, our host for the opening race of the playoff picture. Welcome to our 24th race of 2024. The Integrity Ignite Series is back live on FTN, and tonight, Darlington, South Carolina plays host. It's the track too tough to tame, and 148 laps await us in the Southern 200 in its second annual running. I'll be your host for tonight's broadcast. David Kreutz commentating and producing, and currently qualifying is on the move now with under 3 minutes remaining. Last year's winner, Thomas Bressi, currently holds the provisional pole position and is looking due to back up his victory from 2023, aiming to go for 2 consecutive checkered flags here in Darlington. As it stands, as you can see, the number 24 brand new look today. It is throwback week, and as such, the Exalta number 24 coming with a brand new special paint scheme. Bressi up to the pole position, and Cody Smith right now finds himself in 7th among many of the others in the field who have taken at least 1 lap to this point. 15 drivers, as a matter of fact, have a registered time so far. Brandon Bernhardt is due to be the 16th here in the number 81, throwing it back to the National Guard and Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s days at Hendrick Motorsports. 16 drivers now, none of which have been able to make it through and surpass Thomas Bressi's time. As Bernhardt comes to line, it looks like he's going to have to forfeit his qualifying run. He will not get a validated lap as a result of that slide at a turn 4, it appears. Let's see if he can go for it once again. Now he comes down to pit road, maybe a chance to get 1 lap in. Time is running out with 1:30 left on the clock. Matthew Thunhorse now going to be making it around the way, and for him, it's a throwback to 2023 in itself, bringing back the green top as he did throughout the early portion of his Integrity Ignite Series career, in which he won the first ever regular season championship. Thunhorse looking to put the magic back together as the number 8 machine rounds the back straightaway. Opening lap puts him up into 13th, and now looking to move that much further up. Thunhorse up to 3rd. That's going to put him on the 2nd row. 82 thousandths of a second off of your new pole sitter, Braxton Deweese. Braxton going to take it up to the top of the charts by 43 1,000ths of a second. And as such, the 13 now going to take the pole position. Your top-seeded driver in the playoffs moves up to the pole. And Brandon Bernhardt across the line gets up to 16th. He'll be the last driver to take a validated lap. 20 of our 22 registered have made it to the circuit today and put 1 qualifying lap down at the very minimum. So, Bernhardt, 16th position. Kyle Cooper gets on the track as well. He'll be scored in 18th, but none of the drivers in the field tonight have a chance to, of course, battle against our championship leader. Regular season champion Braxton Deweese will grab the pole for our first playoff event of the year. Number 13 on top of the charts with a quick time of 29.656, the quickest lap of the session by 6/100ths over the fastest time in practice. Braxton Deweese with the all-time fastest lap here to this point. Now qualifying put away, it's time to move on to your 5-minute warm-up session before things get serious. 148 lap event here tonight, one of our longest on the schedule, and our only full-length race. We did the same distance last year and only had ourselves 1 yellow flag. Thomas Bressi came through with the checkered flag after a heated battle with Timothy Johnston, both of which were looking for the race win, and with just under 5 laps to go, we found ourselves in a yellow flag. period. The only caution of the day that shuffled things up, and then from there, a green-white checker to settle it saw Thomas Bressi find a victory lane here from the egg-shaped circuit. Tonight, Thomas Bressi will find himself on the front row as we get to know your starting grid for the Southern 200. Inside of row number 1, 29.656. That's the fast time for Braxton Deweese. He's got the pole position to open up the championship battle here in Darlington. Just a few hundredths of a second back, and in second place overall, Thomas Bressi. He's been on a hot streak as of late. Is looking for another victory to add to the W column. He'll be starting in second tonight with Matthew Thornworth third, Michael Stroll in fourth, and Rob Ackley position number 5. Sixth place, the final driver, Vinny Tigner, to make it to the championship 15. Well, he finds himself with a very strong start. Sixth place will be his starting position. Justin Morton then from there 7th, and Nick Tarbuck is in 8th with Brad Patton P9 and Chuck Sweeting rounding out the top 10. 11th place, then on back is going to be Cody Smith in the number 18. He's the first driver out of the playoff picture. He's looking to collect some victories tonight. Seth Miller is going to be 12th with Don Stevenson, then position number 13. Blake Gordon, 14th place with Daniel Foss in the 38. Starting in 15, it'll be Brandon Bernhardt in 16th place and Ryan Potter, then P17. 18th goes to Kyle Cooper, and Alan Rawell will be 19th tonight with DJ Stagner all the way at the tail end of the field of drivers who qualified. Stagner set the slowest time, a 30.726. Mind you, 1.1 second off the pole position puts you all the way down into the 20th spot. Gap between 1st to 10th, only 3/10, so the upper portion of the field much tighter. 21st and 22nd, the only two drivers who took no times in qualifying. Gael Brooks and Boomer Logan will round out the starting grid here from the track Too Tough to Tame. It is your lineup for the second annual Southern 200. So now a few extra minutes for drivers to get prepared, 2 minutes to be exact, and completely the opposite of what we saw in qualifying. It's our fastest driver so far in second practice, DJ Stagner, almost going for a sort of Brad Patton method of starting in the back of the field, although for him, maybe not intentional, because he finds himself 20 in the last of those who took a time, and now all the way at the tail end of the field, he'll have to work his way up over the course of 140 plus laps. Let's see, of course, whether or not he can do it. The odds might not be in his favor to kick things off, but it doesn't mean that Stagner cannot overcome. He is a champion in this series after all, the inaugural one of which, and at Darlington before, he has had top 10 speed. He and his teammate Ryan Potter have come onto the circuit tonight, and they are looking to, of course, bring the best of Swamp Motorsports to the Monday Night Tour. Meanwhile, Rob Ackley's looking now to best that time. It's the number 22 for Domination Intimidation Racing, running with what has been so far the strongest team on the campaign, short of JTM. Ackley, Tarbuck, Michael Stroll, the absent Chad Mikas, who unfortunately is not with us today, although he found himself third in the championship seed heading into the night. Well, Ackley is the first ever playoff winner in the Integrity Ignite Series, to add to the fact he's the first ever winner in this series. Rob Ackley has a collection of firsts which no driver can match, and of course now as he makes his way down to the pit road, he is not yet first in the timing sheets. 63 1,000ths of a second, it's the difference. Brad Patton tonight did take a qualifying time for the first time this year. He's in 9th based on that speed, and it looks like now he's going to take it off of super hard mode and instead look to make it a little bit simpler for him to get here to victory lane. He's already done so before twice on that ultra hard rendition of qualifying, and tonight it looks like a Lake Speed throwback. The number 83, Seb Miller with Swamp Motorsports on the hood. Lake Speed, the 1979 World Karting Champion, alongside drivers such as Ayrton Senna. He had to compete for that throne, and Speed alike, a stock car winner in the NASCAR Cup Series, finding his lone victory at this very circuit. Speed not as successful in the stock car world overall compared to his one World Karting Championship, but he's one of the only Americans to have ever found that accolade and that success, fighting against who would do to become one of the greatest stock car drivers, or rather open wheel drivers, in history. So we got a lot of throwbacks we're going to be looking at tonight. We'll of course go over each and every one of which as the field comes to the starting grid here in Darlington. The sun is setting and the twilight hours are upon us. for the virtual lady in black. Front row now put together. Braxton Weiss and Thomas Bresci will be the two drivers who lead us through. 22 drivers, all of which are going to be on your starting grid, and we're beginning our pace lap here and now. As the iRacing official pace car will let the field grab their gears, it's going to be all about the past. In more ways than one, Darlington saw perhaps our finest racing last year. It was one of the best races put together. Fierce strategy battle based on tire and fuel, and there's very little racing room at this circuit, which means you have to use it all perfectly. Thomas Bresci and Braxton Weiss, perfect example there. They are hardly too wide on the only banked portion of the track, originally meant for safety purposes in case drivers washed up the circuit. This eventually became the much more preferred racing groove, and seldom since have we seen drivers preferably decide to go down to the bottom with their stock cars or anything of the sort that's competed at this track. Tonight, one thing to keep in note, will be all about the weather. Now, as it stands, going to be very fair conditions here in South Carolina. As we take a look overhead this 1 1/3 circuit, winds are going to be heading eastbound at about 8 miles an hour, and currently track temperature is going to be standing at 80 degrees Fahrenheit with an air temp of 78. Humidity 68% though, relatively speaking, which means these tires are bound to get scorched even if the fans are having a good time in the virtual grandstands. And the virtual pace car just left the field. It's time for the championship battle to get serious. It's a next level race for the Cup, and Braxton Weiss is due to bring the field to playoff action in 2024. 148 laps away to the track, too tough to tame. We are green for the Darlington Raceway. Braxton Weiss leads us into the opening sector. As it stands at number 13, Braxton Weiss gets away for the opening lap and a half, and since we have some time, let's talk throwbacks, as it looks like it'll be sliding up to the top side. Thomas Bresci looking to make a move and can't quite make much of it. It's still going to be the 13 leading the way. As it stands, Braxton Weiss, well, we get a little bit of a cheat sheet about what this number 13 is set to represent tonight. Krista Weiss and Doug Mindorf in chat, thank you both for stopping by. Well, tonight, it's going to be Braxton Weiss throwing it back to Dick Trickle, and one of the drivers in stock car racing who, again, might have not found all that success in the NASCAR Cup Series, a Rookie of the Year. However, he found himself racing for decades, and it is alleged, not necessarily confirmed by hard paper records, that Trickle is the winningest stock car driver all throughout American competition, short track racing and all, with accumulation of more than 1,000 victories, reportedly anyway. And Trickle knows something about victory that very few drivers could have ever accomplished, from coast to coast, and even getting chance in the national circuit. Trickle spent decades in the NASCAR scene, whether it was the Cup Series or any other division. Now, for a driver of his caliber, it's unfortunate that he never did find himself in victory lane, starting in 1970 and going until 2002. 24 years of competition in between, with the best points finish of 1989, 15th. Xfinity Series driver as well from 1984 until 2001. Versatile, and he had a long career at that. Unfortunately, though, for Trickle, he died at the age of 71 years old. Cause of death, suicide by gunshot. An unfortunate end to one of the most storied careers in all of motorsport. And tonight, Thomas Bresci right behind. Well, oftentimes it's more symbolic of Jeff Gordon, the number 24. Exalta's still going to be the primary sponsor, but instead tonight you'll see a red, white, and blue take as we come back from our Labor Day break. Thomas Bresci here. He's given us many looks for this Exalta car, and tonight, while it is a very similar, perhaps, color scheme to that of his international one, which we've seen many a time before in victory lane at circuits such as the Red Bull Ring. Well, tonight, going to be a little bit more of a throwback and a classic look. Therefore, see Thomas Bressi second on the board here as we come back from Labor Day and continue our celebration of the United States. Finds himself runner-up with Matthew Thunhorst. As we previously mentioned, he's celebrating himself tonight and going back to a classic look. If you've been watching with us since the beginning, Thunhorst has decided to go for a little bit more of an aggressive look when it comes to his number 8 team. Of course, now side by side for the race lead, his teammate Thomas Bressi going for the top spot, but to no avail. Matthew Thunhorst came in as the strongest driver in the first ever season of the Ignite Series. He was the regular season champion, and this was the paint scheme that brought him there. And since that point, he's been one of the top competitors, but maybe looking to bring back that old spirit that brought him up as the dominant driver coming into the first ever playoff round. One and only playoff system this year with a 30-race long campaign. So maybe Thunhorst trying to emanate that former success. Same sponsor, same paint scheme design, just a different color on it as we look a little bit further back to Michael Stroll. Many a time that number 3 is not a throwback to Dale Earnhardt Sr., but instead a throwback to Dale Jr. in his days with the AC Delco campaign in the NASCAR Busch Series. Tonight, it's a little bit of both. Now, Dale Earnhardt Sr. made this Wrangler paint scheme famous throughout the late 1970s and beyond. Ever since his time with Rod Osterlund, Dale Earnhardt Sr. had run yellow and blue, whether it was affiliated with Wrangler Jeans or otherwise, and of course, in his final years with the Wrangler Jeans Company, until the late 1980s at that with Richard Childress, this paint scheme was in use. Whether Dale Earnhardt Sr. was running a 3 or the 15 or the 2 as he did in his first ever championship year with Ron Osterlund, the Wrangler Jeans machine became iconic. Whether it was for successes or brutal incidents like that of Pocono in 1982, this paint scheme, it stood the test of time. 2011, Daytona, July. Skipped 3 decades or so from the initial period of this paint scheme. Dale Earnhardt Jr. took to the track with this look. Number 3 in all, he won the Firecracker 250. And it looks like Michael Stroll today looking to emanate that same spirit and look for victory. One of the circuits where the Earnhardt family has seen many a time success in the stock cars. Now, that race in particular, it had itself a few throwback moments, not just Dale Earnhardt Sr., but as a whole, drivers who had spent decades in the field previously getting their chances. Let's talk about that 2011 Firecracker 250 a little bit more here. And the 250, of course, most famously won by Dale Earnhardt Sr. in that year, but you might remember another driver getting their chance in that race. Let's talk a little bit more about that trivia as we go on board with Michael Stroll for lap. We'll bring you back with some more stock car racing history after this. Riding on board now with Michael Stroll. Heading back to our point about the 2011 Firecracker 250, well, you'd have to look back to the 1985 Firecracker 400. And this is a paint scheme that doesn't often get its love. It's very simple, and it was never meant to win, but Dyard Racing, 1985, gave a young Greg Sachs the opportunity to race a research and development car in that race. He won it outright. And in 2011, in the very same race that Dale Jr. put himself to the test in the number 3, Greg Sachs was in the number 88 in what turned out to be his very final attempt in a stock car. Yellow flags out. Boomer Logan, Kyle Cooper, and Daniel Foss. Big trouble at the back of the field. Yellow flag is out. Multiple drivers involved. Let's take a look back now and figure out what caused it. Your opening caution of the day. And let's see as we pull up the FTN replay machine here. There's Daniel Foss before the incident. It starts here with Kyle Cooper and Boomer Logan. Cooper got in the wall once coming through turn 3 and 4. Take a look at this. Unfortunately, just a chain reaction there, and Daniel Foss avoids the drivers, does not avoid the track itself. Motors blue. Down a pit road, many of the drivers went in this incident. You see Daniel Foss there, Kyle Cooper, and Boomer Logan alike. Leading the way is going to be still Braxton Awis, with Thomas Bresci coming down and in as well. Pit road is busy, and it looks like all the leaders of which will make their way down and in together. So our first stops of the day rather quickly here, which will give us some 120 plus laps to deal with. Four tires and fuel expected to be on the docket here for the entire field. DJ Stagner now making it down to his pit stall. Braxton Awis and company, more of the same. Let's see if anyone tries to undercut, whether on fuel or tire here. Don't expect to see any major changes as Daniel Foss is the first retiree of the race. Pit road looks to be easy. Two tires already put on, right sides, now lefts. Drivers already rolling out, but none of which will be able to beat the number 13. Although Blake Gordon does take the two tires strategy, makes the biggest gains of all. He's up to second. That's the 19, up to the top of the board. Well, very close to it as a matter of fact. And now it's going to be the target, Chevy Camaro, up into the runner-up position, almost getting by the likes of, well, Braxton Awis. He definitely got right by Thomas Bresci and company beyond. And now we're rolling 2x2 yet again. 1 lap to green. We'll go back at it. 19 laps in, out of 148 here. It's going to be the number 13 still leading the way. And while it's one driver decided to do something different, the only other example would be Alan Rawell. He decided to take 2 as well, and he's going to find himself currently in 18th. Neither Boomer Logan nor Kyle Cooper are out on the track following the incident, and Daniel Foss has hung it up for the night, as has Boomer Logan. So both of which disconnecting from the race early, and so we're due to do it all over again here with some 19 drivers left on the circuit after incidents. Going to be Braxton Awis and Blake Gordon, the brand new front row. Thomas Bresci still going to be second on the inside line, but no longer does he have that front row position. Let's see whether or not that's a big advantage enough for Gordon here, who is still on slightly older rubber, at least when it comes to doing 2 tires. He's going to have a 50-50 shot at it. Green flag going to fly yet again for the first restart of the day. DeWeese going to bring us back to green and grab the gears rather quickly. Inside, gets away much better, and you can see it's going to be a stifled number 19 of Gordon, already losing a position and might lose the next, as the number 3 of Michael Stroll is coming up, as is Matthew Thunhorst here. So Braxton Awis going to find himself leading this one, and it's going to be single file all over again. Side by side further back, and let's take a look now at the number 19 of Blake Gordon, who has inserted himself into this sort of look all throughout our paint schemes throughout this race. And now finding himself up into the 3rd position, Blake Gordon running a target paint scheme, ones of which we have not seen now for more than 5 years, unfortunately. Target with a illustrious history of sponsoring drivers for decades. You might remember of many others, Jimmy Spencer. How about Juan Pablo Montoya? How about Kyle Larson? And a multitude of drivers across many disciplines. Tonight, Blake Gordon taking some inspiration from many of which and bringing back the look. Although it does not look like a direct replication, it is definitely going to be putting it back on target for the number 19 crew, as Blake right now finds himself up the 3rd and doing a real good job at that. Although it could be Michael Stroll getting up to him here side by side. Toe-to-toe, it could be the number 3 and 19. That will be the battle for the final podium position. Then you got Matthew Thunhorst, who we've looked at before. Rob Ackley keeping the same paint scheme as always, and as is for the number 7 spot, held now by Vinny Tigner. Nick Tarbuck is going to find himself looking a little bit different today. Although it doesn't appear to be much a throwback, it does still appear to be a special paint scheme for the 29. Let's see what he can do as he gets up here on Vinny Tigner. Vinny holding himself up very well today. He's up so far, no positions. Matter of fact, he's down one so far tonight. Nevertheless, he's doing a good job of keeping himself up and ahead, which is imperative to his championship chances, which of course, he came in as the 15th and final seed. Now he's got to work his way on up. The question becomes, though, what can he do to really pull it all together? The only driver who really made the last to first happen before, well, our most recent champion. Didn't choose to defend the title, Alec Daffin, who came in as the final of 15 seeds in last season's racing. He was coming off of what was admittedly an underwhelming regular season given his speed. Major mistakes were made at circuits like Monza, in which he gave away multiple top 10s and ended up having retirements and last place finishes. But then Alec Daffin did something that we may never see again in this league, a complete flip around from dead last in the championship to the top. He finished all the final 5 races, podiums, 2/3, and 2 victories, and a second place to go with. Unbelievable performance from Alec Daffin. It was, of course, the turnaround nobody expected, and he ended up the champion over Thomas Bresci by just a sliver in the overall standings. And while tonight he's not here, Vinny Tigner might have a chance to replicate that, of course, if he wants to find that long-term success in this playoff picture. Neither DJ Stagner nor Cody Smith I've decided to put on a special paint scheme. We talked previously about the number 83. It's the Wins Kmart Chevrolet, and of course the throwback to Lake Speed. But tonight, we're going to have Swamp Motorsports decal up on the front, and Miller right now running solidly inside the 12th position. Chuck Sweeting going to be 13th, and Don Stevenson P14. Similar paint schemes to what they run as always, and Ryan Potter more the same. To find the final throwbacks, Kyle Brooks might not really count as a throwback here. He runs the DeWalt number 71 most every week, but if we are to talk about specific years and specific drivers, none better than 2003 Matt Kenseth, the final Winston Cup Series championship. And that championship has ended up changing the next 20 plus. As a matter of fact, it came down to whether or not Matt Kenseth could go with only 1 victory to a championship compared to drivers like Ryan Newman, who had more than 5, and consistency counted. And it ended up with Matt Kenseth walking away with the title without only having 1 victory, couldn't even get up to the crooked numbers, and from then on out, NASCAR has implemented at least one form of playoff racing, which we see here in this multi-round system. Kenseth, perhaps one of the most influential championship runs of all time, and then you have Brandon Bernhardt right behind, another Dale Jr. throwback, which is to the late 2010s and early 2010s, late 2000s, 2008 onward, Dale Jr., Hendrick Motorsports, and the National Guard. Justin Morton is in 18th, and uncharacteristically, he finds himself very far behind in the channel lock number 9. This paint scheme might look familiar if you're a driver, of course, or a viewer on FTN. Caleb Morrissey in the number 98, but this does appear to be a throwback as well in its own right. However, Morton's going to be very far behind in 18th, as is Alan Rawell in 19th. It looked like Daniel Foss and Kyle Cooper both brought special schemes to the table here tonight in Darlington. However, both of which are off of the track, and we won't get a better look at that for the rest of the day. Now, we've taken a look throughout the entire field, and in the last few laps anyway, take a look at the gap. The top 2 drivers have broken out. Michael Stroll is coming with 30 laps in out of 148 so far. It's going to be now the 13 of Braxton Louise up by 15 100ths of a second. Bresci's been looking high, been looking low, really hasn't quite found anything so far with respect to getting around the number 13, but keeping up with Braxton has been a pretty good thing in itself. Blake Gordon is dropping back as we speak, and he actually just lost the position as we say that. He's down into the 8th spot now, and he finds himself working the second groove, and it looks like now that's the only hope he can have for not getting involved with the lead lap drivers who are all around him. And we say that there are lead lap drivers around him, but rather leading strategy. 4 tires versus 2 tires. So far for Alan Rawell, the 2-tire gamble has not worked. He's down to 19th and last on the lead lap. And for Blake Gordon, it's a little bit more of the same. He finds himself 8th and dropping back continuously. From a high of 2nd so far today, Gordon is now going to find himself on a downward slope, and it looks like there's really no trajectory for reviving this run, short of going down a pit road and everyone going dead even once again. Sun continuing to set, and it's almost an orange sky as drivers traverse down the Boeing back straightaway. Let's talk a little bit more about Darlington. First and foremost, with a virtual anecdote from last year's 2023 Southern 500 season. If you are a viewer or a driver, a fan of FTF.GG, I know some drivers in this field have had experience over there. Josh Stoltz, Tom Wetmore of the like. Last year in the Grand National Series, kicking the tires 400 kilometer, it came down to a photo finish past midnight. Michael Guest, among multiple other drivers involved, I believe it was Malik Ray at the line involved with what was the initial photo finish, and there was contact, a wreck coming down to the start-finish line after 400 kilometers of racing. As a result of the incident, Michael Guest, who was not at all involved in the top 3 photo finish, was awarded the race victory. He found himself swooping down to the bottom of the front straightaway in order to even come up with his 2nd position. And yet, he came through as a race winner. As of course, completely different racing when it comes down to those next-gen stock cars compared to the Xfinity cars, and that's something drivers have to deal with now at the Darlington Raceway. High horsepower packages we're slowly but surely seeing coming back into national style racing. We're starting to see them with the Xfinity cars, and they've been so great with racing almost every track. If the package is set right, these cars drive very well, and that's something these drivers are going to have to note. 2023 iRacing is not 2024 iRacing. In all honesty, we're looking to see these drivers experience some differences inside the cockpit, some of which we could not even see. But right now, they're doing a real good job of just hanging in tough and not really letting any of those extra worries get in their way. Consistency has been key so far. Blake Gordon is coming up on Sebastian Miller. This is a battle now, mind you, for the 11th position, and Blake Gordon is looking to capture that spot and take it away from the already ailing number 19 of Gordon. Gordon came in as the 14th seed of 15, and right now, it looks like Vinny Tigner is outclassing him in the 8th spot. So for Gordon, this is not good as he drifts up into the wall, and it's going to be the 83 of Miller checking up to avoid him. And that's going to be 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4 positions given up at once. Gordon going to tap the wall, and it became a little bit more than a tap. It became more of a rub and a slide as the 19 now is fading back even further. He's going to be hanging on just barely to the top 15 at this rate. And this is why those early gambles are seldom seen, unless drivers, of course, really want to throw it all on the line early, which is almost never the best thing to do. It looks like now Blake Gordon is starting to suffer those consequences. Right now for the number 19, unfortunate to see him falling so far back, but now he's even got Ryan Potter coming up on him, and Ryan does have a slightly different paint scheme today. You can take a look on the hood, as he's going to get it very loose. He's going to have a decal up there on his front end, and it looks like now he's going to have a little bit of trouble dealing with a DeWalt number 71. Let Blake Gordon slide. It's the battle now for the 16th position itself. Rather than looking a spot ahead, Ryan Potter is now looking to avoid going a spot behind. Looks like, though, Brooks got it, and not only that, Brandon Bernhardt now is going to be coming in hot as well. Bad news here for the number 99 machine. If anything, he might be able to salvage 16th for the time being. Let's see what else comes of it. Drivers now settling themselves into the long run once again. 39 laps in out of 148. Nick Tarbuck getting up in the mix with DJ Stagner and Brad Patton. Patton today is doing something he has not all season long. He took a qualifying time, and what a difference is that for him. It's been for a long time coming. Brad Patton deciding to get on the circuit and actually give himself a little bit extra preparation. rather than just going onto the track cold. Well, it looks like tonight, so far, he's done a very good job of keeping up with the top 5 pace. He's up to 5th so far, and it looks like he might still have a little bit more left in him. Now, last year's speed, since we want to talk about that, it is a completely different ballgame with respect to lap time, with respect to lap speed. Well, it looks like we are running several tenths faster on qualifying speed anyway, relative to our qualifying times from the last campaign. And last year, we went to Darlington only once. The fastest time to that point in this league was a 30.306. That was the pole position time. It was set by Cody Smith. It was set approximately 363 days in the past. Now that we come here, almost a full year later, well, Braxton DeWeese right now, he finds himself with a pole time of 29.656, 0.6 of a second quicker, and last year's pole time would have put a driver in between the likes of Brandon Bernhardt and Ryan Potter on the qualifying grid. It would have put them in 17th, and it'll be more than likely they'd be running inside of the top 15, if only just. They'd be running about 16th as well, based on race pace estimations. Goes to show, the track conditions make a major difference. The iRacing build makes a major difference. Lap time that was fast last year is nowhere near competitive enough to stick around in the conditions we have today. As a matter of fact, almost every driver's fastest race lap exceeds the pole time from last season, the only exception being Alan Rawell right now in 19th, Boomer Logan in 20th, Daniel Foss in 21st. The rest of the field in the race has set a faster lap time than the fastest qualifying speed set in 2023. Goes to show 2024's Xfinity cars here on the platform are running certainly a little bit different than what drivers were accustomed to from last year's race. Let's see now what drivers can continue to do as they try to chase the number 13 of Braxton DeWeese. A miracle victory will be for every driver, no matter where they are coming in as a seeded driver from top to bottom. Disregarding the numbers that go with it, a victory is everything to move on to the next round. These rounds are going to be short and they're going to be sweet, which all culminate in one final championship race at the Homestead at Miami Speedway. And so drivers have to acknowledge that. This is a 3-race round. It's the round of 15. Then we move on to the round of 10 to end September. But after this race, we have Talladega and we have Martinsville, which have been on the record our most contentious, most controversial, our most chaotic races on the entire year. They were last year. Martinsville in the Octane Series particularly. That is what determined the Final Four. That's what determined the championship race between Seth Noel and Ross Cato. In the Ignite Series, it didn't have much of an impact in the same way anyhow, but it definitely made a huge difference when we look at, of course, how the Octane Series went down. And Talladega could go many ways. It's gone many ways before. We've seen multiple incidents. We went 100 laps caution-free at that circuit before in one race in this league. Thomas Bresci currently leads the Talladega bracket of victories. He has 2 to his name. He was the king of Talladega in 2023. Jacob Fife won in our first visit here in 2024. He would love to, of course, settle the score and get his second victory, as tonight, Jacob Fife, you might have noticed, well, he does find himself absent from the track. The 36 not with us today. He's one of the other notable championship contenders who has decided to take this race as a little bit of a step back and come back for Talladega, but Talladega's unpredictable. Martinsville is unpredictable. If you have pace here in Darlington, you better use it, and 5 drivers will be on the chopping block by the time we get to the end of September. September 30th, October 7th, October 14th. Those are the dates for our second round. 3 races. October 21st and 22nd are Integrity Championship nights. The Monday night race will be on the 21st, and the 22nd is for Tuesday night's Octane Series. And so, as soon as we get beyond the point of the round of 10, that is it. That is the season. 50 laps in out of 148, 33 laps on the stint, and since we had a little bit of an interruption with respect to our championship picture, strategy picture anyway, both of which were impacted by tires and fuel, well, let's talk about what we predict for the rest of this race. Expecting two-stop strategy to have been the optimal route, it still might be the optimal route, but that is looking a little bit more contentious now based on having such an early pit stop for everyone. So let's take that first pit stop out of mind. We would still expect drivers to come down to pit road 2 more times based on our estimates here. That's if they're not very diligent with saving. 34 laps on the stint so far, we're 51 laps in. Let's say these drivers can go 30 more laps. Then they'd come in at about lap 80 or so, which would be a 60 lap run. 80 and 60 gets to 140, but for the drivers who are not careful, yes, they will have to come down to pit road once again. Now, that's not to say it's impossible, but now we start to see a fuel mileage race develop, and that's what made last year's race so intriguing, except it almost happened in reverse. With the field that we have right now, it's very unlikely that we see drivers sort of make their way into harm's way, intentionally or otherwise. There's not enough of a field to really do that unless a driver straight up loses control, which is unlikely. Looks like right now we're going to see sort of 2023 strategy played in backwards. We had our short sprint, now we have the long term, and usually it's this long run that defines who can win and who can succeed here in Darlington. Let's take a look at this battle from multiple angles here, and thankfully we've got a great view from Thomas Bressi, and we're going to be watching your TV feed as Michael Stroll is approaching, and approaching quick. On the right side of your screen, Thomas Bressi in the number 24 inside the cockpit. On the left side, your TV broadcast feed with additional overlays. We're going FTN nonstop, but we're doing it this time with extra camera angles and showing you exactly what's going on the track. There's the number 3 Michael Stroll coming right up the circuit and following in the tire tracks of Thomas Bressi. Take a listen, take a look, and let's watch here what Michael Stroll decides to do in the 3rd position. Looks like Michael Stroll right now not going to be making gains, and instead Thomas Bressi once again pulling it all back together. And you've been watching both perspectives on board with not only the 3 but the 24 as well. And while you're not seeing the hand movements right now from Michael Stroll, you might see the difference in approach between Bressi and Stroll playing out from both sides. Thomas Bressi there going to go a little bit lower all throughout the corner and arc up high, while Michael Stroll decides to be a little bit more partial to the top side and running the ceiling until it falls down. That's going to be a difference of approach that's subjective for every driver, but right now I think one's more comfortable with making gains than the other. That's going to be clearly Thomas Bressi as he finds himself still in second, but beginning to run away once more. Now taking a look just further back, here's Cody Smith in the number 18. He'll duck down low, and the 18 team now going to move up into 8th. Ackley going to come up on the high side with Alan Rawell, and the 69 moves out of the way quickly. Nicely done there, just to make sure there's no lap car infiltration. And Rob Ackley right now going to find himself in 9th. Smith, a driver who is not currently in the championship picture. Unfortunately for Cody anyhow, it means that he's only got one big goal on his mind, and that's going to be finding the checkered flag. Whether or not he will this season still is up for grabs, but he is an Integrity Ignite Series winner with experience at doing so. Talladega could go anyone's way, but Cody hasn't found the most success so far this season relative to both 2022 and 23 alike. Many a time has he been a top 5 driver and even has found himself onto the podium before. But otherwise, the only Cody with a locked-in win so far this season, it was Cody Griffin to kick off the year in Daytona. Otherwise, it's been a bit of a drought for the Codys in this campaign. Looks like the 18 is looking to pick up the slack as the season goes on. Currently in 8th here, might be going to make a gain on Brad Patton. And Patton so far tonight has found himself comfortably in 7th, but looks like now no chance for him to step out of his comfort zone and make up any further position. Cody Smith going to be right there on the 0-7 machine. Take a look at the back end of Brad Patton, and you'll see just how close the battle's becoming. Cody Smith, he's gotten low, he's got position, and he's going to make room. Smith quickly taking it through turns 1 and 2 and almost getting right up there for a Darlington stripe. Luckily for his sake, he just barely avoided it. So we keep on moving. 61 laps in. No trouble there for Cody Smith as he quickly enough makes that pass for position and now finds himself just 2 spots out of the top 5. Nick Tarbuck and DJ Stagner will be the next drivers he'd have to get to for any chance at the top 5. But if you take a look at the numbers here, 3.5 tenths up. It's the Ragin' Cajun 64 of DJ Stagner. He finds himself 3 tenths up on the next driver, of course. That's going to be Nick Tarbuck with him, but he's also 3 full seconds ahead of Cody Smith. So it's going to take a long time for that second group to get up to these leading 5 drivers, and DJ Stagner still hanging on too. And Matthew Thunhorst might be facing some pressure. Last few laps, it looks like Thunhorst has been ever so slightly quicker, but that's starting to fall in the opposite direction again. 31.81 there for Matthew Thunhorst compared to Nick Tarbuck, who just ran a 31.728. Gap, it's declining and diminishing at that. And it looks like now Nick Tarbuck can have just enough room and just enough position on the circuit to go for a pass. Through turns 3 and 4, the 29 of Tarbuck finds himself now advantageous. Not clear just yet. And Thunhorst is going to have that high groove to ricochet off the corner. And it looks like at the line, still going to have to concede. That's going to be Nick Tarbuck making it up into 4th. DJ Stagner might now have a chance to take it into 5th if, of course, he can just get around that number 8. Now it's going to be a battle between the 8 and 64 alike. Can DJ Stagner make a move before pit road gets busy? Nope. Drivers are coming in here and now, and it looks like after only a 47-lap run, DJ Stagner will decide to drop down in. That is Stagner making the move after a 47-lap stint for his first green flag pit stop, and it looks like the 2-stop cycle, regardless, will be necessary for some, if not every driver in the field. Braxton Weiss right now, 65 laps in, finds himself well and away rest of the head of the field. Here's the number 3 of Michael Stroll coming again on Thomas Bressi. Might be looking at a full-fledged reset of the picture up at the head of the pack if this pit cycle proves to be as important as drivers are, of course, immediately making it out to be. Heading to pit road this early in this race means there's still a pit stop to go. 66 laps in out of 148. No doubt drivers are anticipating pit road to become a multi-faceted approach. Of course, you'll have to encounter it from different ways, whether or not fuel matters the most, whether or not tire matters the most. Tonight, for some drivers like Blake Gordon, most definitely tire is the issue of most importance. There's the number 19 now, making it down the back straight lonely and 1 lap down. He's 19th, and the last of which on the lead lap. Well, unfortunately for his sake, it looks like his race has gone up in smoke. Strategy, he made that alternate call, decided to go for 2 tire to get up to 2nd for a first and only restart, and ever since that point, he has only fallen down the order. Started in 14th, got up to a high of 2nd, and is now as low as he's been in 19th. Admittedly, it looks like the benefits of that alternate strategy have not come to pass beyond the first 5 laps. Up and ahead, Michael Stroll and Thomas Bressi are still going at it toe-to-toe, and there's really no clear victor when it comes to pace. Some laps, Thomas Bressi gets away a few tenths, and some others, Michael Stroll is able to gain back at least a quarter of a second each and every time by. 51 laps into this stint so far. Now it's going to be Stroll ducking down low and making a move for position. This is, again, the fight for 2nd, and it looks like now the Wrangler Jeans machine's got a chance to put the 24 up into the top side without a chance to escape. across the line. They're going to be toe-to-toe, but it looks like the number 3 will not stand for any of it. It's going to be Michael Stroll up into the runner-up position, 69 laps in out of 148. A very nice job there, as it's Michael Stroll only to get a Darlington stripe, and now Thomas Bressi might have a chance. Here comes the number 24 of Thomas Bressi again, going through the Boeing back straightaway. Admittedly, to this point, it looks like there's not much that Bressi can do, sort of waiting again. Although it looked like he definitely had pace through turns 1 and 2. The opening sector, not enough room for him to really power through and get by. And as such, looks like Thomas Bressi going to lie back as more and more drivers commit to pit road. Brad Patton down and in. Here comes the wanted goon 07. While with no team tonight, Brad Patton has decided to make some different calls. He'll come down at a rather conventional time after 52 laps on his stints. Pit cycle going to be fully underway for drivers of the next coming 10 to 15 laps. Most drivers still anticipating their first green flag move to pit road as we get closer and closer to halfway. I think now, if anything, someone like Braxton Awis is evaluating whether or not he can go further. 54 laps is relatively long, but it isn't the longest stint possible. In all honesty, fuel dictating everything tonight means if you can stretch it further, it is much better for you to do so. And right now, it looks like the number 13 will continue to stay out and ahead, waiting until the absolute limit is found. Same goes for the drivers who are right behind him. Thomas Bressi, Michael Stroll, both of which now, well, they're still on the track. It looks like they have not decided at all to give up. Just because drivers are coming in now and trying to play it safe doesn't mean that is the winning move. Strategy is going to be all over the place tonight. Many drivers might have gone through that pit cycle differently. And now some of which you might have made the wrong calls, whether it was on pit road or maybe the way they drove these first 50-some laps. They're either going to pay the price or they're going to have to adapt. That's as simple as what it comes down to. Right now for your leaders, there's very little adaptation for them to go through. They'll just run until the gas tank's empty. They'll come back in, get themselves a new set of Goodyear rubber, and Thomas Bressi might need a little bit of body panel work as he catches a Darlington stripe about twice as intense as that of Michael Stroll. And so now maybe Bressi finding a little bit of trouble because look who's behind. Nick Tarbuck by half a second. Looks like that gap is diminishing as well. 73 laps in, make it lap number 74 out of 148. Next time by, Braxton Awis is looking to get himself a halfway bonus and secure some extra points in the championship. And talk about a driver who certainly needed this position. For the number 13, Braxton Awis has, of course, been the class of the field. He's been fighting to be the overall top driver, and if it hasn't been him, you could say DJ Stagner or Thomas Bressi, but Braxton has been remarkably consistent, especially after his short, shall we say, downward slump that he had around Dover in the first 10 races of the season. In those next 15 that we've had, of course, he has been the top driver. He's gained points in the championship and won the regular season without much of a challenge. And now, looks like he's going to be good to go to maybe making a one-stopper from here. 75 laps in out of 148, make it 74 laps to go. It's Braxton Awis leading the way with Michael Stroll in second, Thomas Bressi third, Nick Tarbuck in fourth, and Matthew Thunhorst position number 5. It'll be then sixth place here, the number 18 of Cody Smith on old rubber, getting passed by some of those guys on new tire. Perhaps a spoiler of what's yet to come. Rob Ackley is running 7th, then you got 8th and Don Stevenson, and 9th in Vinny Tigner, with Chuck Sweeney 10th and last of those inside of the top 10's confines. Braxton leads the way right now as we just came to our halfway point, and if you'd like to join the fun here on FTN, well, scan the QR code on your screen right now. Broadcasters, of course, viewers, fans, anything in between, we'd love to have you join the FTN broadcasting community, or you can click the links in our description below, as right now we're coming closer to that second half. There's a few races left in Integrity Ignite competition. If you'd like to join the fun, you can check out our broadcasted league section and enter the official Integrity Racing League Discord server, all the same. We proudly utilize iRacing Motorsport Simulation for all of our sim racing content, Content here on FTN Broadcasting. For additional information, visit iRacing.com for summer discounts of greater than 30% off all sorts of memberships. With 71 laps to go, you're watching the Southern 200, and we'll return after the following message from our friends at iRacing.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Coming now with 69 laps to go. Braxton Deweese nicely defending the throne, and in all honesty, he's had very little trouble leading this way from almost flag to flag. 81 laps in out of 148. The Southern 200 has come now to the night sky, and for the time being, Braxton is the man who's looking to bring us through for a one-stop green flag strategy. Pit road, it's going to be hit for Vinny Tigner after 63 laps. Vinny's going to make it in, and he's going to be one of many who have done so to this point, leaving only 10 drivers left on the circuit. Braxton, Michael Stroll, who is, yes, now in second by over a second. Well, looks like now Nick Tarbuck might be the man coming up for third. Let's see now what the number 29 can do as he makes his way through. Already up into fourth, and he's been making gains from 8th to 4th so far today. He might be one of the biggest movers. Brad Patton usually takes that award for himself. Another driver who has an opportunity to win that award would be DJ Stagner. He's up 9 on the day so far, and not often is he a driver who really makes big moves, but tonight it looks like the Raging Cajun has returned yet again. Stagner right now going to cycle up 2 more positions as Rob Ackley and Nick Tarbuck, both of which decide to go down and in. It's the 29 coming in just before Rob Ackley's 22, and it's both of which come together. It's going to leave few drivers out here deciding to stay on the circuit. Whether or not Braxton Deweese decides to come in this time by, 2 times from now looks very likely. Maybe something in that vicinity, because Thomas Bressi just decided to come in after 66 laps. And it looks like now 84 laps in out of 148, 67 lap stint, and 65 laps to go. Therefore, he can make it again by, of course, doubling up on his stint. He'll have 2 laps to spare, shouldn't have to worry all too much about tire saving. At least if he's done it before, he can do it again. Now the field comes in mass. Braxton Deweese is going to come in with Michael Stroll, Matthew Thunhorst, Cody Smith, Chuck Sweeting, so on and so forth. All of which are going to make it down and in here with 64 laps remaining. And it looks like for Braxton Deweese, this is the make or break stop. It's going to be now whether or not he has a quicker time than Thomas Bressi or Michael Stroll. Honestly, Michael Stroll would be the top competitor. He comes in second. Can he cycle out net second? That still remains the question mark. Both drivers going to be up on the jacks. Thomas Bressi will leave earlier, it appears, but no, he will not get the advantage over anyone safer Matthew Thunhorst. And so now Michael Stroll gets away. Braxton Deweese, though, is now going to find himself up by 2 seconds, and they're still making it through pit road. Meaning here, Braxton Deweese again has the advantage and comes back on the track. 63 laps to go. He is ahead by 2 full seconds on the field. And Chuck Sweeting now going to be coming down and in from the race lead. He finds himself dropping down now, and relinquishing that race lead. He's one of many tonight who have gotten a chance through this pit cycle. It's been Thomas Bressi up there. We've seen beforehand, of course, DJ Stagner getting higher and higher up in the charts. And now DJ will lead his first lap of the day, lap number 87, moving him up to the top spot with 62 remaining. And now coming up on the lapper of Cody Smith. Although it looks like there's very little he can do with these lappers on new tires. They'll just run away from him. The pack has diminished, and so now very small groups are going to decide the fate of this event. You'll see now a few groups are getting maybe a little bit tighter. There's Vinny Tigner, who's running in net 11th, or rather overall 11th. He might cycle up inside of the top 7 again. Matthew Thunhorst is going to be in 11th here overall, and then there's Rob Ackley, who is in 9th. All of these drivers you're looking at here are set to gain at least a position or two out of what's left of pit road. 61 laps remaining, and in all honesty, it looks like time will still be the biggest factor for all those trying to make passes up. Here comes Vinny Tigner, although it looks like in the opposite direction of what he'd like, as he's going to let Matthew Thunhorst go through, and coming down the back straight into the front, Thunhorst with just enough momentum to make it up inside the top 10 for the first time since this pit cycle started. Still waiting on 5 drivers, and we say waiting because these drivers went down a pit road, and yet they are going to be on a substantially different strategy. DJ Stagner went in 24 laps to go. He'd have to go on an 84 lap run to make it to the end of this race, which appears to be all but impossible. And yet DJ is going to put himself out there. Now is going to bank on a yellow flag for any chance to win. Brad Patton, more the same. He would need a 79 lap run to get to the checkered flag in one piece. That's about as unlikely as they come here. And it looks like for the time being, Brad Patton's going to be in 2nd overall. Braxton Ruiz, who was the leader for such a long amount of this race, well, now he finds himself 16 seconds away from the race lead. And while he does find himself about a lap, or rather a second a lap faster, still, it's an awful lot of time to build back up, especially when Braxton is also going to experience that tire wear, which will continue to slow him down. It's a tricky spot to be in right now for Braxton Ruiz, but in all honesty, he does still have all the time in the world. That's the only thing that he can really relish in for the time being. 58 laps to go. At the rate he's going, he would catch up in maybe 25 laps at the longest, which gives him some 30 laps to play with. Do not burn up your equipment, overshred your tire. There are still drivers behind you looking to make up spots. Someone like Michael Stroll, someone like Nick Tarbuck. All 3 of these drivers who are now almost 20 seconds behind the leader, well, they've still got a lot to think about here because their race is only just begun. This time by, though, they're going to be given the biggest disadvantage of all, of being put back in the field. Although they've got time, they've also got position to deal with, and that's where it becomes a trade-off of pros and cons as they decide to come in after a long overcut of 15 plus laps. Now, all the drivers ahead in the top 5 will not make it to the end of the race. Ryan Potter's the first of which right now who's going to experience some troubles, and right there went Braxton Ruiz, 3 wide and almost door banging, and Ryan had to give. There was nothing else he could do in that circumstance. Sort of had to give it all away all at once. And luckily, nobody in that incident is going to have any substantial damage. Looks like everyone actually got away scot-free. That's going to bring Michael Stroll now up into the picture, and that's going to definitely slow down Braxton, but not enough to really make an impact here on Michael Stroll, although it looks like he has been putting fast laps together time after time. Last lap, it was a half-second difference between Braxton Ruiz and Michael Stroll. That time through 0.4 of a second. So all of a sudden, it looks like Michael Stroll has been turning it up, and the lap traffic that has been faced now by the number 3 has only helped him that much more. Braxton just got by Sebastian Miller. It looks like up next will be Blake Gordon. This is the battle for the 3rd position on the field, and it looks like the number 19 will have to concede as quick as he got it. 53 laps remaining. Braxton Deweese up in the third, 13 seconds still to go on his chase for victory. Michael Stroll going to find himself up next, looking at the driver of the number 19. That's Blake Gordon, and here he has himself going down to the inside, tucking in low, and past the Boeing back straightaway. Michael Stroll again with the advantage, and now there's going to be nothing separating the number 3 from the 13 besides car lengths here. Gap is 9/10 of a second. And Braxton right now, while still having the edge, has still been slower almost every lap. In clean air, that does change. Now Braxton finds himself a 10th faster that time by. Although Michael Stroll was still dealing with lappers, this should be an even test to determine who's got the pace and who does not. They'll have 5 or 6 laps without dealing with the lappers here. Maybe a little bit more, depending on how long they decide to run it out. And maybe up next, that's going to be the biggest determining factor, because Braxton Deweese is coming up on Brad Patton on a 27-lap-old run, and no doubt Patton's going to make it maybe a little bit more challenging than those who just got past to get by him. Nick Tarbuck is going to be in 7th right now and getting right by the 6th spot of Seb Miller. Tarbuck has been dealing with the lappers, but maybe not having the best of times with it. Really hasn't been able to make any gains to Michael Stroll, and instead has been losing time to the number 3 in this continued fight. No other driver seemed to get through as well as Michael Stroll did with the lappers, although it looks like now 7/10 of a second is the gap between Stroll and Deweese. Braxton is not looking back, and instead his priority is what's up and ahead of him. Ackley's going to let Justin Morton go by, and Justin now gets up into 11th here. And what a turnaround it's been for Justin Morton. We mentioned, and he was out there in about 18th to kick off the night, found himself at the tail end after starting in 12th, but now he's up into the 11th position and still gaining. It looks like ever since that opening point where he had some troubles, the 9 has been one of the faster drivers on the field, that time through a 30.8 second lap, faster than all but 3 drivers. So certainly now Justin Morton knows what it takes to stay quick at this track, and finally starting to utilize it here as Brad Patton's going to see slowly but surely Braxton Deweese is approaching and looking to make it a tough battle for the 2nd spot. Let's take a ride on board now with the number 13 of Braxton Deweese as he goes for lap 100 here in Darlington. Braxton Deweese moves up in a second, and as you can see now, 4/10 back, there's the 3 of Michael Stroll, and as quick as he got by, he moved on. No struggle for neither the number 13 or number 3. They both got by Brad Patton, and in one foul swoop, they'll be coming up on DJ Stagner, who decides to concede on his own terms. DJ goes down a pit road, and so Braxton Deweese takes the race lead. From 16 seconds back up to the race lead, it's going to be now Braxton Deweese with 47 laps to go, and Michael Stroll just behind him. Both drivers now have all the time in the world, and Michael Stroll has continued to gain. Now the question becomes, can the number 3 maybe keep on getting closer? He's gotten himself more than a half second back in the past 5 laps. Now there's only 1/2 second to go. Can he catch up, and can he make it a fight for the position? Or right now is it going to be a little bit of a stalemate, and will the 13 once again keep on moving up? Across the stripe, that time by, Michael Stroll recorded a faster time at 30.744 relative to a 30.8 flat put in by Braxton Deweese here. So it's clear that Michael Stroll still has the pace not only to keep up, but remaining slightly faster that time by as well. The gaps are marginal at times though, and it looks like the lap traffic really helped out with Michael Stroll's case. Now they're once again clean with nothing around them and clean air only. It looks like Michael Stroll again maybe struggling a little bit more so to get up into the right position. Now it's going to be Don Stevenson battling against Sebastian Miller. This is going to be the fight for the 11th position, and P11 going to be held fort by the 83 of Seb Miller, but maybe not for any longer as Don Stevenson begins to look right low. So Stevenson, quick pass, is going to get up into the 11th spot. Not half bad for Don as he makes up another position. Let's talk again about the championship picture tonight, something that has been so critical to all the field, from those who are leading the championship like Braxton Weiss and company all the way down. Now, overall, the top-seeded drivers should have no worry. The first 5 or so making it into that round of 10, it will be a cakewalk. Then you have yourselves the drivers a little bit further on back, especially those drivers who came in with no victories. That's where it gets tricky. Someone like Blake Gordon, Don Stevenson, even Nick Tarbucker. Of course, you mentioned Vinny Tigner, the final driver to make it in. Tarbuck has been very strong this season, regardless of not getting the checkered flag just yet. Matter of fact, he's running in 4th right now. But for those who are maybe a little bit further behind, you would look, for instance, at Blake Gordon, who is now going to be in 10th. It looks like he's falling back down the ladder again. Maybe someone like Don Stevenson. Stevenson finds himself in 11th here. Overall, the championship runners, multiple are not with us today. Chad Mikas, Jacob Fife, those two big names, and they were both coming in as top 10 seeds, not going to be in this event. Nevertheless, a race like this could be make or break, and for Vinny Tigner, it could be one of those races that is critical for him as he comes in with a single-digit run so far, coming in with a top 10 qualifying effort, and now top 10 in the race. Looking pretty good for the number 12, and maybe a chance for him to get away from the bottom of this barrel, maybe move toward the upper half. Gap for the race lead, it's now 3.5 tenths of a second. 40 laps remaining here. Top 2 drivers, Michael Stroll and Braxton Weiss, and this battle exemplifying what it takes now as drivers move up to the next level in our championship hunt. We'd like to thank Next Level Racing, providing high-quality sim racing performance products for dedicated sim racers who deserve nothing but the best. Visit nextlevelracing.com for additional information, as we are going to give you a message from our friends at Next Level Racing. Once again, use promo code INTEGRITY for 10% off at checkout for all Next Level Racing purchases, and we'll be right back after the following message from our friends at Next Level Racing. .37 laps remaining and counting down. Braxton Weiss leads now by 4 tenths of a second to DJ Stagner, the lapper thrown in the mix here with the Raging Cajun Chevrolet. The battle for the race lead has been relatively stagnant over the past 5 or so laps. 10 laps, it looks like Michael Stroll has gained about a tenth or so in that last interval, but it looks like now everyone's coming back to their most even portion of the run, where there's no real clear advantage, but with that lapper DJ Stagner going by Braxton, you can see now gap does get down to as low as a quarter of a second through turns 1 and 2. definitely now Braxton Deweese with a perfect opportunity to run away if, of course, he can use those lappers right. But if they end up going to backfiring on him, there's little more that he can do. Lap traffic has played an instrumental role in this race so far, and it's going to do so once again. 36 laps to go. A few drivers have decided to come down to pit road for their final time. One driver who might still have to is Blake Gordon. He will be the last of which who still has to, mathematically speaking. He's gone 49 laps on his run so far, and he would have to go 35 more. It's looking very unlikely that he's got what it takes to go all the way, because that's an 80-some lap run, as it looks like Brandon Bernhardt coming across the line very slow, but no signal that there's any incident with him. Gael Brooks is going to go dropping down to the inside of the circuit, and there definitely was an incident. Here's an instant replay. Let's figure out what just happened as we take a look back on the last two turns. Bernhardt jams into the wall. Gael Brooks nowhere to go. And the 71 locked up tight is going to end up losing his front end. And you could see it flying all the way down the circuit. And luckily getting away from the drivers, nobody in harm's way. But Gael Brooks, very tricky circumstance for him, as Gael's going to be going down to the apron and getting back on the way. It's a 71 still with just enough power to keep going. And for Brandon Bernhardt, definitely going to have some backside damage, but otherwise he should be able to continue, although it looks like he has gone down to pit road as well. And now we find him down and in on pit road, still getting damage repair 2 laps down. Meanwhile, gap to leader, quarter of a second right now for Michael Stroll, 27 100ths to be exact, across the stripe each and every time. And this is what it all comes down to, whether or not the distances, the intervals continue to decrease. And for Michael Stroll, while slow and steady, yes, they have. It looks like even still, Michael Stroll is slowly but surely gaining. And that gain will prove instrumental toward the final few laps. Whether or not it's big or not, of course, it's all about slow steps with 30 plus laps on the table. We have 30 laps for Michael Stroll to make it up 30 hundredths of a second. If he made up even a hundredth of a second each and every lap, he would be there at the line and he would collect the victory. But it's not as easy as saying, go collect this certain amount of speed, go collect this certain amount of time. It all comes down to strategy and the way you play it out. Maybe Michael Stroll right now looking through his back pocket as a driver and seeing what he has still in store, what resources are available to him. Pit road, yes, it's available to these drivers, but do not expect that to be the crutch you want to really rely on tonight. Matter of fact, you go down to pit road again, it's most likely your race is over. That's something the drivers here who are fighting for the lead know. You cannot go down a pit road in a circumstance like this. It will not help you. It will end your night. So tonight, it looks like it all comes down to pace and whether or not the driver has the tools inside the cockpit to go for it and win off merit. So far, Braxton Deweese has been the driver all race long, and there's been no real challenge to that notion. And it looks like in the past few laps, again and again, he has some cycles of maybe gaining, he has some cycles of losing time. He just gained some hundredth of a second over the last 2 laps. It was 400ths gained in the previous lap, and this time by, Michael Stroll got 3 of those right back. It's one of the truest back and forths we've seen all season long. Not side by side, nothing too flashy, but instead it's both drivers running their hottest laps with 29 laps to go. This is attrition and a head-to-head form. Many of these drivers no longer on the lead lap. Matter of fact, only 11 of which are still going to be on the lead lap. The last of which is DJ Stagner, who still might be in danger of going one down if things do not go his way. Meanwhile, the rest of the field, you look on up, well, they're still going at it, and they're all throughout the field, all throughout the circuit. These 2 drivers still remain the focus. Some battles, while similar in distance, have not had the same implications. Don Stevenson in 8th, Vinny Tigger in 9th. They are separate by some 0.6 of a second. Rob Ackley might see Don Stevenson behind him and maybe worry just a bit. The gap between those 2 is 0.4 of a second. However, nothing right now looks to be all too important to the overall championship picture, save for maybe Vinny Tigger making up some big moves, getting outside of that top 15, or rather bottom 5 bubble, moving up from 15th. 27 laps remaining. That's on by. Michael Stroll losing a full tenth of a second. It looks like the signs are clear now. The number 13 is clearly the quickest and looks to be best fit to go all the way. Now, while that best fit might be true in these solo runs, this is where lap traffic once again plays its part. Here comes the 19 of Blake Gordon. 2 laps down as it stands and looking to get one of those laps right back. It's going to be Michael Stroll here, hopefully making it easy, but the 19 backs off again, deciding not to take the corner from the leading driver. And Stroll, the number 3. So, Gordon's going to wait just a little bit longer. And now coming out of turn 2, Gordon definitely right there on Michael Stroll, and this is about the time he can go for it through turns 3 and 4. Again, deciding to back off. It looks like Blake Gordon right now, maybe with a plan as to how he's going to do it. He'll go up high here. Michael Stroll decides not to, gives him the lane, and there you have it. The 19 with little obstruction decides to make his way through. That's going to be Blake Gordon, the 19 up into 16th, still 2 laps down. And now his goal is to make it only 1 lap behind. With 24 laps to go, maybe a chance that Gordon tonight can battle for a top 15 if all goes well here. Looks like Gordon made it through, and as quick as he comes, he is gone. Now Braxton Deweese maybe loses some 1/10 of a second, maybe 1500ths at the most. 23 laps to go, though, and that interval will not mean all too much. Now, 23 laps to go. Next time by, as always, we're going to crank it up with the best iRacing camera providers on the market. TrackCams22.com. The best broadcasters choose the best cameras, and that's the reason TrackCams for Gourmets has been trusted now by FTN for more than 2 years. Visit TrackCams22.com for additional information regarding iRacing's leading camera provider, as we are going to crank it up now with 22 laps to go, courtesy of our friends at TrackCams22.com. Braxton Luis now with 16 laps remaining. Just ahead of him is the checkered flag here in the Southern 200. And it looks like with them, Michael Stroll is still going to be just behind, bandwagoning about 7/10 adrift from your top driver. You got right now, looks like one battle. Rob Ackley, Don Stevenson, both of which going to be going for the 7th position. And for Ackley coming in slowly but surely, you'll see him making his way out of turn 2. Looks like he's not going to have as much momentum off the corner as that of Stevenson. Still going to be hanging on with that defense. Rob Ackley today started this day in 5th. Right now he's in 7th, down 2 positions, and it looks like Stevenson currently going to find himself up 5, looking for that 6th number to end the night. Stevenson not yet able to find that position, although it looks like tires going to be relatively even between the two drivers. 49 laps for Don Stevenson, a 2-lap advantage over the 51-lap stint ran by Rob Ackley. The advantage, it is marginal so far across the two drivers for the 47's favor and shouldn't play in all too much relative to how these laps are going to be counted and of course how the tires are worn. 1 lap does not seem to make much of a difference today. 2 or more has made all the difference. So for the sake of Rob Ackley, for the sake, of course, of Don Stevenson, both of which right now have to evaluate who's really going to have to go for which role. Is it going to be worth it for Rob Ackley to defend and burn up his stuff? Is it going to be worth it right now for Don Stevenson to go all out and aggressive and burn himself up? It's very likely that this is going to play out one of 2 ways, and it's most likely that Don Stevenson has the equipment advantage that will carry him through. But for Rob Ackley, he could play it smart here and maybe hang on, keeping himself up in the position regardless of the quote-unquote advantage. Wrangler Jeans machine right now running in 2nd, 137 laps in. We're coming down to the home stretch here, and Braxton Luis is up and ahead as he's been all night long. It looks like there's very little else to say about it. Tire strategy turning out to be a 2-stopper today. 1 under yellow, 1 under green. It's been pretty simple ever since that point. It looks like most drivers have been able to follow along with minimal hassle. 12 laps remaining. Make it 11 that time through. That time by, Braxton Luis ran a 31.756. His best lap on the day, in the race session anyway, was a 29.954. So the gap between the fastest laps taken of the race and those after 50 laps on a stint, it's 2.5 seconds. It's tire degradation to the max right now when it comes to drivers having to deal with what they've got under the hood. It is become mostly about the Goodyear Eagles that they're working with. Degradation has been massive, and as the night has gone on, it looks like it's remained all the same. 10 laps to go this time by, and since we have a little bit more time, we'll bring you your final Next Level Racing promotional messages before we go uninterrupted coverage to finish off the night. We'll be right back after our final messages from our friends at nextlevelracing.com. One final reminder that you can use promo code Integrity at checkout for 10% off all Next Level Racing products. We're back after this with 10 laps to go. You're watching the Integrity Ignite Series and the Southern 200. Looks like a little bit of contact for Vinny Tigner. He will straighten it out, and we'll be right back. 7 laps remaining. The fiercest battle, 8th, 9th, and 10th right now for all drivers on the field. It looks like now this race is coming to a bit of a standstill, so to speak. Admittedly now, with drivers now finding these final few laps just ahead of us, this race played out as a little bit of an inverse of what we saw in 2023. One yellow flag, yes, but it came down to when the caution flew. Tonight, it flew early, and since that point, we have been smooth sailing from the jump. Checkered flag, it looks like it's going to fly now in what could be only 5 laps time, and Braxton Deweese has once again proven that he is the top driver on the circuit. Now, 5 laps to go and counting down, Deweese has himself made. Whether or not, of course, he can hang on to it, that's up to him here. It's all about driver error, which has determined the majority of this event. Looks like Michael Stroll still going to be second, and one of the drivers who has fallen back, the worst of which, it's going to be Thomas Bressi on a 60-lap run. He's now 1 lap down from 13th. Finds himself now, P13, maybe looking up on Cody Smith. This will not be for position. Let's see whether or not he can get something of it. 4 laps to go. It's going to be Cody Smith right now, 5th, running a very strong race, although he's not part of the championship race. Going to find himself chasing checkered flags. Victory lane is going to be his only goal in the Next Level Racing 18, and tonight, not a bad way to start it. He finds himself now careening down the back straight at a speed of 170 miles an hour and keeping Thomas Bressi at bay. Quarter of a second now between Rob Ackley and Don Stevenson, even still. Not yet has Don Stevenson been able to find his way through, but he's kept himself rather close. Once again, going to back off through the corner, maybe get the better runoff exit. 3 laps to go, only to make it 2. The Southern 200 is going to come down to popsicle sticks here as Braxton Deweese will come across the line again. Braxton Deweese now with a gap of 2.1 seconds to Michael Stroll. It's a clear-cut victory in the making. If, of course, Braxton could go for 1.3 miles longer from the track too tough to tame. But tonight, that name is not all too fitting for a driver who has been here before. But tonight, he's looking to find victory lane again. The opening of the playoff picture, one of the most important races in our championship battle. This is oftentimes what sets the stage. And what we saw last season, what we saw the season prior, if you are able to win to open up the campaign, you are able to go all the way and find yourself as an Ignite Series champion. This might be the next best thing for Braxton Deweese, short of outright winning the championship, as he is due to open up the playoff picture with a bang and a victory in the Southern 200. Braxton Deweese is back in victory lane and opens up the next level race for the Cup with the win from the Darlington Raceway. The lady in black and the car in black have met each other's match. Deweese will win. It'll be Michael Stroll in second, Nick Tarbuck third and last of those on the podium tonight. Taking a lap around the circuit, Braxton is due to burn it down, and this is one of those victories needed for a championship run. This will effectively advance him into the round of 10, and now the pressure's off him. Focus is on what's next in the championship. Braxton continuing to celebrate as drivers go through for their cool-down laps. It's the 13, finding victory lane again, and in the most pivotal position, his most dominant checkered flag so far. The Allensard Images number 13, honoring Dick Trickle with that throwback scheme. He found the ticket to victory lane tonight. And what a success it will be. Darlington Raceway won by Braxton Deweese. Second place going to be Michael Stroll with Nick Tarbuck, position number 3. Matthew Thunhorst in 4th, and Cody Smith Then in 5th, it'll be Justin Morton P6 and Rob Ackley 7th, with Don Stevenson 8th, DJ Stagner then 9th, and Chuck Sweeting position number 10. He'll round out the top 10 and one of the final drivers on the lead lap. As a matter of fact, only one other driver on the lead lap, and the one and only off the top 10 was Brad Patton. Vinny Tigner able to make it to the stripe. Technically speaking, the lead lap, iRacing timing and scoring will officially count him as one lap down. Then you got 12th place in Thomas Bresci, and then you got 13th spot is Bresci's, 14th Seb Miller. Ryan Potner is going to be P14 with Blake Gordon in 16th and finds himself just ahead of that Ryan Potter machine. Alan Rawell 17th with Gael Brooks in 18th. 19th place is going to be Gael Brooks, and Boomer Logan concludes the top 20. 21st place going to be held by Kyle Cooper, Daniel Foss 22nd, and last after our very first incident of the night. As such, Braxton Ruiz is the man who gets it done, and we're going to hear from your race winner first and foremost, and we'll get a word from all your top 3 finishers to end the night here from the Darlington Raceway. Interviews coming right up after the Southern 200. Braxton Ruiz, Michael Stroll, Nick Tarbuck. Notable takeaway for the Domination Intimidation Racing crew. They will find themselves with a double podium today. 29 machine of Nick Tarbuck able to make it up to 3rd after starting 8th. Net 5 positions on the day for Tarbuck. A great race for him, continuing to move on up. And Tarbuck is going to be fighting for the championship in both the Ignite and Octane series as a member of the Big Three, and driver who is not yet one of the Ignite series. He's sort of finding inverse success in both series. He's not found victory in the series of parity, and in a series which has been dominated by only 3 drivers, he is one of those men. But let's talk first to your race winner, Braxton Ruiz. And tonight, Braxton, with the championship race just beginning, the playoffs have, of course, opened up for 2024. A win tonight, huge for this team, and a dominant one of that here from Darlington. Tell us how it was out there.
It was very beneficial to get the pole and start out front and be able to lead everybody to the green flag. The clean air here at Darlington is absolutely huge, so I was very happy to be able to start out like that and be able to get out there and set the pace. Bresci was on my tail. He was definitely making me work for it. I was kind of going a little bit faster pace than I kind of wanted to, but at the same time I was still trying to save the right front and the right rear as much as I could. But I'm just a little disappointed that I didn't give him enough room going into one there. I realized right after I did it, I turned in way too early. I didn't want to hit the wall, and I just turned in too early. Like I said, it wasn't enough for him, so I'm kind of disappointed on that. I wish I would have gave him a little bit more room so we could have raced that out a little bit more. But I think he finished 13. That's unfortunate run because he had a hell of a car. He honestly had possibly a faster car he probably had a faster car than I did. He just couldn't get to the clean air, as easily. But like I said, I'm kind of disappointed in that. But all in all, I'm still glad I was able to keep it underneath me and hit my marks throughout the rest of the run and through pit stops and throughout the rest of the race. And Stroll, he gained a bunch on me after that pit stop. It was really close, but I was just like, you know what, we're just going to cruise, run our line, and, hopefully we come out with it. And we were able to. So, it's a hell of a start to the playoffs, and, I'm glad to do that at my favorite track here.
And tonight, meaning oh so much when it comes to the championship, one of the big things we've seen all season long, which is critical again, tire strategy, working with fuel, managing your strategy as a whole was necessary tonight. Only one quick yellow, and then from there, all green. How was it for you working what was inside the cockpit to figure out when it was right to go down a pit road and how long you had to manage your stints?
That caution actually cut it pretty close to make it with the one stop. We ended up running it all the way, and I was actually sputtering down pit lane because I wanted to go as far as I could to, have laps to try to. I mean, it was so close to kind of cutting it around 60 laps. 60 laps. It was a couple more. I think it was like 63 and 63 or something like that. But it definitely made it pretty close. And we didn't have to save. I wasn't saving any, but if that was like a lap or two before, we definitely were gonna have to save maybe a little bit. But I'm just glad that we were able to have enough fuel in it and be able to make it a one stop there. And like I said, hit my marks in pit road and be able to come out with it.
Hitting your marks and getting everything set up. It was almost a routine lap after lap, and it worked out quite well. Braxton, first victory here in the round of 15, and that's going to take a lot of weight off your shoulders with what's up next, because it's Talladega, where anyone can win. It's our most unpredictable, perhaps, race on the schedule, short of Martinsville in 2 weeks' time, but perhaps now the focus is on what's next with the round of 10. How's it feel to have that victory heading into Talladega?
It definitely relieves the stress off your shoulders for sure, knowing you have two more races in this round and you don't really have to worry about winning. So, um, it's we're definitely gonna go out and try to win just like we do every week next week. But we'll see if we're a little bit more conservative of being in the back or trying to lead some laps and try to get that playoff point at halfway and potentially get a win and playoff point there. I believe if there's a win, I think there's like 3 or something. So that's practically what'll help me for the next round. I believe if it's still carrying on in the playoffs. So that's something we can try to gain. But all other than that, it's definitely a good feeling to go into Talladega, and I believe Martinsville, if I'm not mistaken. It's definitely a good feeling. So two pretty good tracks that I like to run. So hopefully we can have some good finishes there as well.
And now looking to move forward in the opening round with the first victory in the playoffs. Braxton Weiss, checkered flag is yours in the Southern 200. Any final thoughts you'd like to add after tonight's race?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely want to shout out Alan's Arts Images on the car. We got the 1999 Dick Trickle throwback here. It's something different. I like to do something different that's, nobody is really, that I haven't seen on iRacing or haven't seen in real life with the throwbacks that they do. So I was happy with how it turned out, and big shout out to Evan Pineda Designs for that. He's done the last 2 throwbacks for me relatively pretty quickly. So big shout out to him for that, for getting him to me. And also I believe it's Randy's birthday on Friday, his 50th birthday, if I'm not mistaken. So if I heard that right. And, so that's like a little early birthday present. Even if it's not, we'll still call it an early birthday present, because why not? But big shout out to him and Kelly Allen over there at Allen's Arts Images. Really appreciate them, and as well as Interstate Ford, Bennett's Publical, James on Main, DeWeese Renovations, Booth 34 Diecast, and Rivals Photography, Blaze Designs, as well as Evan Pineda Designs. Like I said, he's the one who did this car, and as well as Bully Dog Coffee Company. You can use Brax5 for 10% off over there to try out some coffee, or if you have already tried it, just use the code or something. And I appreciate everybody that tuned into the broadcast, into my live stream and whatnot. And I appreciate you, David, and hopefully we can have a pretty good rest of the playoffs. It's a good start.
Winning to open up the title battle, Braxton Deweese collects the checkered flag here from the Lady in Black. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, David. Have a good one.
And while Braxton definitely had the best performance of all drivers, the team game was dominated by, well, none other than DIR, Domination Intimidation Racing. Michael Stroll going to lead the team to a 2-3 finish, and second place tonight from Darlington here. Stroll, you had what seemed to be top 3 speed throughout the entire night. Things fell in your favor to get up to that middle step.
Yeah, when I came back from my injury, I was just kind of glad to be back and kind of got my feet wet, and now I'm to the point where I'm getting tired of finishing second. So this is my 5th one. Can't complain too much though. Being the first round of the playoffs and get off to a good start. I was below the cut line coming in. I should be above it now. I was pretty far back from Braxton. I think at one point it was like 4.5, but I was thrilled to catch him. And have a shot, and maybe hopefully make him make a mistake or something. But I just ran out of gas or talent or tire or whatever. Just ran out of energy to even make a run at him. But I'll take P2 again. Puts me in a good spot for next week at Talladega, where I typically run well, but I don't ever finish well. So we'll see what happens.
And getting a good points day to open up the playoffs. You mentioned you've seen second place many a time tonight, being one of which. Strategy, a major factor, though. And it all started with, of course, qualifying. Track position made a big deal of it, 4th to 2nd, so maybe not the most glamorous race on paper, but you made up several seconds and got, was it a quarter of a second of passing Braxton there? Clean air, you think, made the difference?
Yeah, once I got within like 3 or 4 tenths, the car tightened up and it was harder to make a run, and I didn't have enough tire advantage to get underneath him. If I could count better in the car, I probably would have came in a lap or two sooner to undercut him. I don't know if that would have, helped later on in the end or the grand scheme of things or not, but it's really hard for me while I'm driving to play crew chief and do math. That lap 15 caution really messed up all the numbers in my head, and then once I try to count and see if we can make it on gas, because I didn't want to screw up like I did at Kansas and screw my entire team. So I was just like, we're running this one out, take the points, and get through these rounds and stuff. And you love to always win, but my ultimate goal is to at least make the final. I think it's five drivers make the final race, because I'm really good at Homestead. So that's my goal, is make the top 5, keep climbing and keep climbing. And we'll get there.
And all things considered, not only a great race for you, a great race for the team, doubling up on the podium before heading on to Talladega, one of the most chaotic tracks on the schedule. At times, we've seen some great green flag racing at that circuit as well. It could go both ways. How important is it to you to, of course, continue the success there?
Yeah, like I've mentioned multiple times, our team here at DIR, the 4 of us have been working really well all season. We're missing Chad tonight, and he's going to have to probably win next week or the week after to make the next round. So we're going to really help him to do that. But Talladega is always a toss-up. I've seen chaos there, and I've seen, I think last year we went caution-free here with a pretty hefty field with like 30 cars. So it can always go either way. Confident in the talent that we have here that we can keep doing that. So see what next week brings.
And looking forward to heading back down to Alabama again. Michael Stroll, position number 2 tonight in Darlington. Any final shout-outs you'd like to give?
Oh, just take the rest of my team in DIR. We get better every week, and we're going to make a run at this championship.
There we have it. Michael Stroll, position number 2 here from the Southern 200. Thank you again for your time.
Have a good night.
Stroll going to be on the way. One of the only drivers who's fighting in both championships, Nick Tarbuck. Fighting, of course, the Ignite and Octane Series, respectively, for the title. Has not yet found victory lane in the Monday night campaign, but another strong podium finish here, and making your way as one of the very few to not lock in on a victory. You've gotten yourself another strong result. P3 here from Darlington. What was it like out there?
It was fun, man. Good to see you again. It was really fun out there tonight. A lot of just, it's classic Darlington. Really hard, really just, you can't take a break ever. You're always on the edge the entire time, battling tires, battling getting loose and tight, trying to pass on a lane or on a track that's wide enough for barely 2 cars. It was fun, man. Didn't quite have the qualifying I wanted to, but over the race ended up just kind of taking my time. You probably hear this a lot from me, but just saved a little bit of tire to kind of keep my long run speed, and was able to come out with another podium, so I'm not going to complain there. It's a good start to the playoffs.
And tonight, you, Michael Stroll, DIR as a team, getting a double top 3. We want to first off mention that strategy as a team is going to be crucial for these next races, notably Talladega. Perhaps tonight, maybe working that strategy together, preparing for what's next.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for some reason, we can't quite do math on our team yet. So the fuel mileage races are where we really, we could throw those away at any moment, it seems like. But I think that tracks like Talladega and any other track where it relies on teaching each other how to run better and how to, just kind of sticking together and helping each other out. I think we're on a good footing there. So I think that, yeah, the next few pack racing tracks are going to be good for us because we can work together pretty well, and we're all pretty aggressive trying to win this thing.
And the aggression is up now, the playoff picture. But tonight, there were very few drivers who were around on the day. You made multiple positions up as the race went on, especially on the green, 8th to 3rd. So the green flag pace, it did not escape you, but it seemed like it was relatively empty out there. How was it for you dealing with strategy as a driver individually, given that?
Yeah, I think my first run, first off, apologies to Justin again, just came down on him, getting used to a new setup here, so just wasn't aware of my surroundings as well as I usually am, so I'll practice up and get ready for next week for that. But besides that, it was just a matter of being as careful as I could on the right front. I wanted to make sure I had enough turn in late in the run, and once I was able to start catching the top 3 or the top 2 after the first run, I knew how to run it, and I kind of figured I was 5-6 seconds back from Braxton going into the final pit stop. So there was really no chance of me winning unless something crazy happened or we had a caution. So I just really took it easy on the car, really saved as much fuel as I could to make sure I'd make it, saved the right front, and just kept a consistent pace the whole race and tried to stay out of the wall, which is important here. And I was able to do most of those, and it paid off. But I definitely would have liked to be a bit closer to the leaders so I could have ran for a win there. But, you know, it is what it is.
And just like that, Nick Tarbuck getting yourself a strong run to open up the playoffs here. I want to talk about that before we move on to Talladega. You mentioned new setups. We had an update to the Xfinity cars before we head forth to Talladega. How have these things been driving in the past 2 weeks leading up to these final races?
Yeah, man, they're fun. I really liked the setup tonight. It was a tad tight on the long run, but I feel like it could have been just how I drove it as well. But I like the Xfinity car. I think it's fun. It's more old school compared to the new Cup car, and even to the one we run on Tuesdays. It's a bit different. It's a bit more downforce, a bit more grippy, so you can kind of throw it around a bit more and be a bit more just aggressive with how you drive it. So I'm liking the way it's feeling. I'm liking the tracks coming up, and I think we're gonna have a good run as playoffs. But you know, we'll see how it goes.
There we have it. Nick Tarbuck, any final shout-outs you'd like to give or final messages before Talladega? Floor is yours.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to thank you for broadcasting as always. Thanks to Next Level for supporting us. The racing tonight was really next level. Thanks to the boys back home for watching, mom, dad, the wife, everybody that tuned in, and we will see you guys next week.
Wrapping up the top 3 today from the Lady in Black, Nick Tarbuck, position 3. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Just like that, the championship fight has begun, and our top 3 made up all of podium sitters who are in the playoffs. Nick Tarbuck going to be kicking it off in 3rd, then we move up to Michael Stroll in 2nd, and your race winner, Braxton Deweese, getting the job done once again, winning here from Darlington as the opener for the next level race for the championship. Up next, we go to Talladega, which is a track we've been to multiple times. It always goes a little bit differently, no matter when we go to Talladega. There's one thing that's always the same. The level of excitement is constant, and it's about the most exciting super speedway on the platform. No matter if it's the fall or spring we visit, it always has championship implications. And so, we'll be there in just about a week's time. On this Monday night, though, we'll leave you with our final moments from the virtual Darlington Raceway, live on FTN. You've been watching the Southern 200 here on FTN Broadcasting. The Integrity Ignite series is exclusively broadcast on FTN, and we'd hope to see you for our next broadcast at the Talladega Superspeedway in a week's time. I've been your host, commentating and producing, David Croy. Said if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like on the stream and subscribe to the channel. Your support is always thoroughly appreciated. If you enjoyed enough that you want to go out here and race with these drivers, scan the QR code on your screen here, and you can join the official FTN Broadcasting Discord server and become a member of any of our leagues from Monday to Sunday and any day in between. Thank you again for tuning in on FTN Broadcasting to coverage of the Southern 200. We hope you have a fantastic night.